Hi everybody, I'm Jack the Rambling Raconteur. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a great start to this week. It's late on Tuesday night, but we're going to do a quick Tag Tuesday book tag. It'll be the coffee brand book tag, originally created by Josh at Literary Gladiators, another one in his long line of great book tags focused on food and drink. Always a delight for me, even though I don't drink coffee at all, which we'll get to in one of the later prompts. So prompt 1, Maxwell House, a work that was good to the last drop. Well, if it's the last drop of hemlock, it would be Plato's Phaedo. But since that's not what we're talking about, there are so many I could choose from. But one that I really enjoyed recently and that I felt managed to get all the way to the ending and just earn its ending and earn every word, across the end of the book would have been Circe by Madeline Miller. I loved reading this in December. And like I said, there are a number of others that I've really enjoyed where I feel they managed to complete the full work, have that full arc. But Circe was one that jumped to mind. Prompt 2, Folgers, a book you were eager to resume reading. I'm going to go with the essays of Michel de Montaigne. I love this book. I think last year, about a year ago, I did Lukash's 10 favorite nonfiction books, and this ended up being my number one. I mean, this is a book that I find endlessly interesting, endlessly wise, just a book that I return to, and I'll reread certain essays over and over, and just one that always stimulates my mind and, stimulates my heart in the best ways possible. Highly recommend the essays. If you've never read it, I think they're publicly available, you can find translations in the public domain, or you can find cheap copies that just have a handful of the essays, but they're excellent. I highly recommend them. Prompt 3, Chock full of nuts. That was one of my cousin, that's a brand my cousin drinks. A work that transports you into a wealthy environment. And I thought of a couple of interesting ones. I thought of some of the scenes in George R. R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire books where he has the big feast scenes. Could have worked. In terms of wealth, obviously John Cheever comes to mind for me, in part because he has characters who have names like Trace Bearden, which just smacks of mid-Atlantic, elitism. And I think those characters are supposed to be more upper middle class, but when I was reading in the experiences I grew up in, they seemed fabulously wealthy to me. And also the characters had names like Trace Bearden. But one that I always think of for finance, not so much that the characters are super wealthy, but they're working for that wealth, would be Bright Lights Big City by J. McInerney. And, this book goes to kind of reinforce with irony that idea that people might be sort of financially wealthy and in terms of their humanity, totally impoverished. Also a really good second-person narrative. Prompt 4, Dunkin. My daughters prefer the donuts. A scene-stealing, supporting character, and there are so many good choices. But I felt like, and I've spoken about this before, but I feel like one of the beautiful things about great, children's books and picture books is that there are the weird things kids will fixate on. And so in Go Dog Go, we have this scene where the dogs are all sleeping, and then there's this one that has its eyes open and isn't asleep. Okay, and then on the next page, the dogs are all, awake. It's, and now it is day, the sun is up. Now is the time for all dogs to get up. And there's this one dog that's still asleep. And that way of kids being able to look at a picture book and see there's something different and unique about this one, character within the book. Those two dogs fascinate my daughters. One is always drawn to the dog that is awake while the other dogs are sleeping, and the other one is always drawn to the dog that is asleep while all the other dogs are awake, and they never fail to point those two dogs out. And I just think that's one of the things I love about kids' picture books is the weird ways that kids can make up their own stories and use their imagination within sort of the basic outline, of the story. Off that tangent. Prompt 5, Wawa, a work that makes you think or have an idea about New Jersey. Do I have those? The only book I could think of was American Pastoral by Philip Roth, with the glove factory there in Jersey, and I don't really enjoy that book. I really don't enjoy Philip Roth's writing in general. So I would love a recommendation. What is another book that should remind me of New Jersey? Please recommend, and I look forward to finding a new one in 2021. Prompt 6, Starbucks. They're everywhere. They proliferate. A writer you find pretentious but admirable, and why not go with Haruki Murakami? This is Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World, which I think is a real fun book. Some of his other ones just sort of veer. The surrealism might be preferable to some of the realists, but it also can just be a little pretentious. Prompt 7, The McCafe, an excellent source for world literature. The library, but Norton has a series of anthologies like Norton Anthologies of World Literature, some title like that, which are good. One that I read a section from last year would be The Adventures and Misadventures of Macron by Álvaro Mutis, and he's a writer from Colombia, and really enjoyed The Snow of the Admiral. I look forward to reading another volume in here later on this year. Prompt 8, Pete's, a work that especially succeeds with its words. I thought for a long time about this prompt because I had a lot of, and Josh was interesting in how he responded, to his own prompt. But I thought about like sort of a words versus ideas. So like a writer who can write really lovely sentences but seems to be bereft of ideas. And so John Updike came to mind. Even John Cheever to a certain degree would fit that bill. And then I thought of sort of this idea of just focusing on words and like books that almost are entirely based in dialogue. So Henry Green's Party Going might be a good example of that. But then I thought, let's take the next step to like a drama and one that doesn't have too many stage directions. I ended up deciding on Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. Prompt 9, Café Bustillo, a work from a Spanish-speaking country that translates especially well into English. And that would be any of the writings of Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, brilliant writer who, while being from a Spanish family, grew up and was writing in Mexico. And just an absolutely fantastic writer. I read this entire volume last fall and loved it. The translation is by Margaret Sayers Peden. It's fantastic. Prompt 10, Lavazza, a work that gives you a sense of Italy or Italian culture. I couldn't think of a single book. I could think of like older Italian works like the Divine Comedy. I could think of a couple of like mysteries, but I couldn't really think of one that I felt, there are Italian writers I like, but not one that necessarily focuses on sort of giving me this sense of Italian culture. So I ended up going with two movies, Bicycle Thieves, Italian neorealism, and then The Great Beauty, which is one of my favorite films from the 21st century. So, prompt 11, 8 o'clock, your favorite use of a time of day in a song. I almost went with I thought it was a book originally. I was going to go, points and lines where the railway timetables are important, because I just read that in January. But it's a song. I'm going to go with Wednesday Morning, 3 a.m. by Simon and Garfunkel. It's the title song from their debut album. I'll link it in the description box. Prompt 12, Gavelia, a writer whose works are always rich. That would be Toni Morrison. I'm looking forward to reading Tar Baby later on this month. Brilliant, right? I mean, just rich in terms of language, rich in terms of the imagery, in terms of like the ideas and themes, rich in terms of like the way that, the human experience is probed. Love her writing. Prompt 13, Chase and Seaborn, your favorite literary partnership. I'm going to go with Jeeves and Wooster, PG Wodehouse. Prompt 14, Martinson, your favorite word or expression that originated in a work of literature. Once more into the breach, dear friends. Once more into the breach. That's what we cheer when we're the calculus cavalry and the state math test comes up, or the AP tests come up, The calculus cavalry's on the way. And our rallying cry is once more into the breach, dear friends, once more into the breach. In fact, I can even get like the support staff, like the counselors and security guards and stuff at my high school to cheer that with me sometimes. So it's fantastic. Prompt 15, Native American Coffee, a work by a Native American you would like to read. And I've read it, but I want to recommend it to everyone. And I'm always looking for, more volumes that have more of this work. But within the Portable North American Indian Reader, great volume, there's a section that it focuses on oratory, mostly from the 19th century, but within there are some really interesting ones. Tecumseh is in there, and giving a speech in which he goes after then Governor William Henry Harrison, later President. Sitting Bull, there's just a whole group in there, but the Tecumseh speech is really, really strong. So I highly recommend it. Prompt 16, Sanka. How would you go about reading more works from different genres? I try to do that pretty routinely because I have kind of an addictive personality, which is part of why I try to avoid too much caffeine and specifically don't drink coffee. Where I will try to read, I might read like a crime novel and then I'll read something that's more like literary fiction, and I might be working through some short stories or some essays or nonfiction, kind of like interspersing those. And then I might read a play, and then, a science fiction book, a work of poetry. So I really do try to mix up what I'm reading. So I encourage everyone to do that. There's a sense of discipline to it, but it also, if you're mixing up what you're reading, I find it allows you to re-stimulate your curiosity in a lot of really healthy ways. Prompt 17, my favorite brand of coffee. I don't drink coffee, but my wife here in Phoenix really likes the coffee shop Esso, like the old Standard Oil, like ESSO, and Black and Bold, which she orders. It's not local, but she orders that brand. Prompt 18, who do you tag? I'll tag Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics, and I'll tag a relatively new channel, but he's been commenting for a while, Jordan Parsons. I'm also going to link his Divine Comedy Reader Tag video, because it was really, really awesome. Highest percentage of books I love ever mentioned in tags. So probably even higher than this one, to be honest. So hope everybody's having a good week, and thanks.